What's up, agency owners? Jason Swike here with another great episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast for the agency owner that wants to own their agency and not be owned by it. And in today's episode, I have a great guest that's been in the agency world for a long time, sold an agency, and been in it for over 2 decades. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Hey, Gus, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. Glad to be here. Good to see everybody. I hope
Yep.
I dressed up well enough for the podcast.
Hey, you got your flannel on. That's all you need.
That's right. I knew your code.
There you go. Well, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Gus Wagner, president and owner of the Rocket Group. The Rocket Group is based out of Jefferson City, Missouri, state capital. You learned about it in fourth grade. And a full service agency. We work coast to coast, north to south in the United States. Working in all sorts of different sectors with businesses, organizations, and nonprofits. Our long history in government communications, and politics is what was our foundation. We've kind of grown away from a lot of that, but we do long range advocacy programs, community representation, and advocacy programs, and then full service agency, both traditional and digital sides.
Awesome. And how did you get started in the agency? Accidental agency owner or what?
No, accidental. I guess the old story of I was working for somebody else, woke up, it ticked off one day, called in to say, how do I quit? And they said, oh, well, hang on, we got to figure it out. And by the end of that day, I had all the incorporation papers and everything filed and just went off and did my own thing.
I like it. Go in there, quit, take a shit on their desk and leave.
Yeah,
That's what we
I
all
was a
wanted
long
to do,
distance
right?
employee, so yeah, it would have been a long drive to do that, but no.
That's right. So tell us a little bit about, you sold part of this one agency and then you were able to kind of still do, the Rocket Group. So take us through the story of how all that worked.
Sure. Like you said, the Rocket Group was established 21 years ago. Lots of different opportunities and projects and such. Made a lot of colleagues. One of my colleagues and contemporaries is here in Jefferson City. We were presented individually and decided to work together on an opportunity in the public utility sector. That was supposed to be like a little short 6-week deal. 5.5 years later, we had that statewide association plus 19 other state associations, 200 individual member public utilities, and the national organization that we were working with on a daily basis. Had split that organization off into another agency. It was owned by my agency and my partner's agency. We did that for 5.5 years until we were approached by one of our competitors or somebody who actually wanted to grow up and be like us. And they decided to make an offer. We accepted that offer and closed that deal the first week of March 2020, which, as I said earlier, is good timing.
Yep. So walk me through when you started getting this work, right? Why did you set up a separate agency?
A separate agency was set up because of us owning the Rocket Group, my partner owning their firm, and decided, to have the two firms own the third firm. So
I got
that LLC sometimes provides a level of protection. So let's stack them up.
Gotcha. Okay, so you had the Rocket Group, and you brought in a partner, and you were like, "All right, let's. I don't want to give you any of the Rocket Group." Perfect. Got it.
Right. Yeah. And we've
Would you?
done that several times. And, whether it's because of industry niches we were serving or different partners who didn't want to get involved in the entire uh, operation of the Rocket Group, or I didn't want to sell a piece of the Rocket Group. And I've never done that actually. So we start off a separate spinoff agency or organization.
And when did you feel that that was right to do? Because there's a lot of agency owners, especially agency owners in our mastermind that are always networking, always passing business back and forth, working with each other, right? But they keep their
Right.
companies separate.
Hmm.
And clients know that as well, right? They'll be like,
Hmm.
okay, ABC company is working with DEF company. So
Hmm.
you guys are doing email marketing, we're doing TikTok advertising or whatever it is.
Sure.
When did you guys say, well, let's kind of create this own entity that both companies own? Like,
Hmm.
that's what people are thinking.
Right. I think the first time we decided to do that, it was before I actually talked to my accountant, and they didn't get a chance to shut me down on that idea. So, uh, in the case of Arc Media, which was the former agency which we sold, it was just a case of the simplifying it for the clients. They'd have to deal with one entity instead of two entities, et cetera. So, it was all, we grew up in partnership with the client, and it gave them a sense of pride as well that they helped create this agency, and now it has grown into such a big thing, and was able to be sold. So.
Yeah. Walk us through kind of the process when your competitor reached out and said, "Hey, we want to buy you." What were you thinking? Were you thinking like, "Oh, they're just going to try to figure out what we're doing"? Like, what was that?
Yeah, it was a competitor that we had an arm's length, I guess, relationship with. They knew us, we knew them. Worked and some, we worked in the same pool of clients across the country. They had a smaller effort than us doing social and digital for these public utilities, and they were trying to do it differently, and it just wasn't, from our outside perception, it wasn't being very successful in that client base. So it was actually a client of ours that said, you guys had to talk to each other. And so our conversation started, kind of compared some strengths and weaknesses between the two organizations, considered a future plan of, first off, protecting all of our people that were on staff at that time. And then kind of the conversation grows from there. So it seemed, we were at a point where Arc Media was at a point where we'd either have to, blow up uh, very larger than we were probably comfortable with, uh, to manage. My partner and I, we would never admit to being the greatest business managers ever, but we do, execute very, very well, and do the work on a daily basis, find great people to work with. So having that larger structure was attractive to us as well. Somebody take those headaches away from us. So.
Gotcha. And walk us through kind of start to finish. How long was that process?
Ooh, that's a good question. Going from memory here, I'd say probably 6 months or so from the initial conversation until signing the paperwork and making the announcements.
Okay. And did you tell your clients and team right away, or did you hold off a little bit?
We told everybody the day after the closing, or the sales paper were all signed, so it was a pretty quick turnaround to get that information out.
Okay. Yeah, I always, what when we buy agencies at our agency, usually we say, "Hey, don't tell any clients for like 6 months." So then when we go to them, be like, "Hey, how's everything?" "Oh man, everything's even better." Like, "Oh, we were sold
Right.
6 months ago," because everybody always freaks out when a company is acquired because then they're like, "Ah, service is going to go to shit, and I need to go
Sure.
look somewhere else."
Yeah. No, I think the buying agency, the firm that bought us, was excited about what the structure we had in place and the capabilities that we had in place. So they wanted to put that in play to the entire prospect base versus just the people that they were doing business with and the people we were doing business with. So.
Okay. And how did you guys determine a valuation? Was it on top line revenue? Was it on profit? What was it?
It was based on profit, and I'm not allowed to do any of the math in any of these organizations that we're involved with. So I was not part of those conversations. I trusted the people, the professionals we had hired to do the evaluation and compare it to what the buying agency evaluated it to, and I believe we actually met in the middle of what the two groups thought we were worth.
Okay, cool. And do you remember if it was like a how many of a multiple? We don't want you to
I
tell
want to
you
say it was
exact number, but like
sure.
because everyone's always wondering, is it a 3x? Is it 4x? Is it 5x?
Yeah, I think we were at a 3.5x, somewhere in there.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then a lot of people always want to know, like, was there like was everything 100% cash, or was it a lump sum,
Mhm.
earnouts?
Mhm.
Walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, we made it as complicated as possible, where there was an initial cash payment made to the owners of Arc Media at the time, and then we had a 3 year period. So there was a big chunk at the front, and then two smaller chunks over the next 2 years.
Cool. And was that guaranteed or on performance?
It was guaranteed. There was a performance incentive as well, and yeah, we've exceeded all those numbers at
Good for
that
you.
time, and the company is, that what we created still lives and breathes and very strongly.
Good for you on hitting the performance. Usually everybody's set up to fail on their performance model, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why. Like I tell everyone, we were screwed on our earnout. Like literally they waited, like we got outside this window and then those fuckers sold like the next day. I was like, oh, bastards. So, but I always tell everybody, be happy with the cash you get up front because nothing
Mm-hmm.
else is, guaranteed. Anybody can go bankrupt or do corrupt shit.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, it's the buying agency was very well established, decades and decades of existence, and we knew what their reserves were, and we knew everybody who was involved. So we felt pretty secure, and we were going to make those 3 years of earnouts.
Cool. Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad it worked out. I talk to a lot of people, it doesn't. But
Sure.
that's kind of what I'm here for to help guide you and put you guys in the right rooms with the right
Right.
people.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing, Gus. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
I think you know, like we talked about before, the evolution of this industry, the marketing industry, as long as I've been in it, 21 years with the Rocket Group, and then 10, 15 years before that. We used to have the clip art books that we'd flip through to find vector images at the time, and use that in the mock-ups and such. Now, I've already knocked out like 10 designs today because, simple stuff, but because of the evolution of the technology, it's just, you can do it so quick. Um, but, I always like to remind people to not overcomplicate either the business or the client relationship or the structures that you use to manage either one of those areas, because the simplest answer is usually the best, and the more complication you put into it, the more frustration you're creating, the more headaches you're creating, and the more accountant and lawyer bills you're creating. So keep things simple, keep your eyes on the prize, and keep moving forward and upward.
Awesome. And what's the agency website people can go and check you guys out?
Sure. rocketgroupllc.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Russ. And if you guys, let me ask you all a question. If you feel like if you own the agency, or does the agency own you? If the answer is the latter, where the agency owns you, I'd love to help you out. I want you to go to jasonswank.com/game plan and let us help you put together a game plan together, where we're going to look at what you're doing, what you need to be doing, and then you have the plan to go execute. That's our gift for you. So make sure you go to jasonswank.com/game plan. And until next time, have a swank day.